around the west and the north will perhaps bring 1 or 2 showers with it. Well, basically, though, it's a dry story right across the west of Europe, from the Low Countries down through Switzerland, France, through Spain and Portugal. Now, the afternoon temperatures may be high enough to set off 1 or 2 showers in central Germany and some thunderstorms over parts of Spain and Portugal. Most of the thundery weather from Italy eastwards through to Greece and Turkey, with some slightly cooler but brighter weather up in the northeast of Europe. And in fact, through into Tuesday, we'll see the showers moving further southwards, mostly around into the south of the Alps and the Balkans, and cooler weather for northeast Europe.
Well, it's as plain as day you're not a very contented young woman at this moment.
I don't know if I want to be a doctor anymore.
A system under strain.
You are here to learn, after all.
Well, let's hope we're learning about the mistakes we make when we're dog tired, eh?
I want to see him made to pay for what happened to my daughter.
Times have changed. Perhaps some of us haven't changed with them sufficiently to be of much use anymore.
Cardiac Arrest, Wednesday at 9:50 on BBC One.
And now on BBC One, a nostalgic edition of Pebble Mill with Ross King.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Titchmarsh.
Oh, thank you. What a big cheer. Is that the relief that it isn't Ross King and it is me? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be told off afterwards. But anyway, look, welcome to a great week on Pebble Mill. He'll be here a little bit later on. But this is a week when we're talking to people whose memories of VE Day have stayed with them for 50 years. And you can't say that of Ross King. You can sing along with Max Bygraves on Thursday and you can reminisce with Michael Benteen tomorrow. But today, I'll be talking to 3 people whose wartime experiences are as varied as they are riveting. Joining me with his trumpet in the same hand as it was when he joined the crowds outside Buckingham Palace on VE Day, Humphrey Lyttleton. A man whose CV reads like a history of classic film and television entertainment. That's Peter Vaughan. And we've a special interview with the Forces' sweetheart, Dame Vera Lynn, and her husband, Harry Lewis. But first, to get you in the mood, some music from the 40s. A song from Walt Disney's film Dumbo, first released, would you believe, in 1941. It's called When I See an Elephant Fly, with Julia Shaw and Michael Law on vocals. Please welcome the Piccadilly Dance Orchestra.
Stand, heard a rubber band, saw a needle that winked its eye. But I think I will have seen everything when I see an elephant fly. I saw a front porch swing, heard a diamond ring, saw a polka dot railroad die. But I think I will have seen everything when I see an elephant fly. I saw a clothes horse, rarer than bud. They tell me that a man made a vegetable truck. I didn't see that, I only heard. But just to be sociable, I'll take their word. I saw a lantern slide, saw an old cowhide, and I just laughed and I thought I'd die. But I think I will have seen everything when I see an elephant fly.
The PDO. There'll be more from them, PDQ. For my first guest today, the war years meant sampling the delights of international cuisine. He served in France, in India, Ceylon and Singapore. He was also part of the Combined Services Entertainment who inspired Privates on Parade. All that was 50 years ago. To bring things right up to date, we recently saw him as the grandfather and local councillor in Joanna Trollope's The Choir.
If the Dean and Chapter could not afford to keep up the choir, would the council consider financing it as part of the city's history?
What?
It would give you much more democratic freedom in the choice of choristers. There could be links with all the city schools, an ethnic representation.
What does the choir cost?
About 120,000 a year.
So, the cathedral roof could be paid for that way.
What?
You could borrow the full cost of repairs and repay the bank at 120,000 a year for however long it takes.
My dear Mr. Ashworth, your financial grasp.
But you could sell us the headmaster's house and pay off a big chunk of the roof at once.
That might, in time, become part of the bargain.
Oh, he's a wily old bird. Please welcome Peter Vaughan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
He was a deliciously wily old bird, Peter, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was sincere. He was sincere, though. He was sincere.
But you get your devious roles, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
You seem to me to be a man who relishes. I mean, you're not a small man. You're a man of quite large stature.
Another elephant flying.
But grouty will be the role with which you will ever be associated.
That's right. Amazingly enough, the great feedback from that role, I only ever actually appeared in 3 episodes of Porridge and the feature film. But the role was talked about. It was such a brilliant character, written superbly. It was talked about, and they were all so frightened of him and the rest of the characters that it seemed bigger than it really was.
Did it get you seats at restaurant tables where they weren't, you know, because I imagine if you walk into, oh, yes, I'm sure we've got a seat for you, Mr. Vaughan, somewhere.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll have to try it.
But not for you, the role of the nice, gentle chap.
No, well, I don't really look like that much, do I, actually? And I think, quite honestly, for me, I do like character roles. Roles where, you know, people aren't quite right. They're not quite what they seem. They're not really very nice. Or if they try to be nice, then something just doesn't come through.
So what was the particular appeal of the grandfather figure in the choir, then, for you?
Ah, well, the great thing about that was that he was an atheist in a religious setting. So that immediately gave conflict.
Yeah.
And I think drama is conflict, and wherever I can find conflict, I go for it.
You started very early. I mean, you were 16 when you decided it, but it really rather coincided with war breaking out.
That's right, yes, and it worked out to my advantage in those early days of the war because various people would be... I went to the Wolverhampton Repertory Company, and I'm sure they only took me on because I was reasonably tall and perhaps looked a bit older than I was, because everybody was being called up into the army, you see.
So
Kenny Moore, for example, Kenneth Moore was in the company. He went into the Merchant Navy. And it became increasingly difficult to get actors in their early 20s. And so I had a good old go when I was about 17 and 18, until one day in the early 1942, I got my turn.
Where did you go?
I was in Signals, and I went to Catterick. I was a Morse code instructor there.
And you still do it today?
Oh, yeah, Did it. That's Alan.
Oh, thank you! Quite touched.
Right. No, that stays absolutely in your head, you know.
Can never get rid of it.
Can never get rid of that.
I was saying you
helps
travelled...
with the actor's madness, really, you know, to have a little bit of Morse going on in the back of your nut.
And you've got to be a bit mad to do it as well.
You have, really.
I was saying you travelled all over the place. What were you doing on VE Day? Where were you?
Oh, well, on VE Day, by then we had been we'd been in Normandy, and we were doing communications there for support troops, as it were. And I was in France and Belgium. I can't exactly remember where I was on VE Day, but I know we got a hold of some champagne, had a few glasses.
Well, you were in the right place then,
Yeah,
wherever it
we
was.
weren't too very far away from champagne.
But you were one of those, and there were many of them, for whom the war did not finish on VE
No,
Day.
it was short-lived, my euphoria. After a day or two, they said, you're a likely lad, and they sent me out to the Far East. So I just went straight out there. India, Ceylon, and then we did the Malayan landings, but by which time they had dropped the hydrogen bomb, and the war was really over.
Yeah.
But being still reasonably young, I didn't get demobilised for some time after that, because we all had age and service numbers, and we were released slowly month by month.
So the younger you were, the longer it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I went out at the end of 46, during which, for the last few months, as you said in your introduction, I was involved in Combined Services Entertainment.
Was it really like it was in Privates on Parade? Did you have the Sandy Dennises, with Dennis Quillian, that wonderful camp role? As the
Yeah, they
chaplains
were all
and
there. They were all they were all there. But I was in the office, actually. I was doing administration work and working more on the radio, on Radio Malaya. I used to read the news. This is Radio Malaya, broadcasting from Singapore on the Blue Network. Here is the news.
Oh, lovely. An early Angela Lee and an early Jan Leeming, then, really, you were, weren't you?
If you like to put it like that, yes. I would have thought perhaps I was more Martin Lewis.
Or Richard
Anyway,
Baker.
yeah.
Was it easy to get back into the swing of acting when you came back here?
Well, I had been very, very fortunate with the people who employed me, the Salberg family, a very famous Midland family in Birmingham and Wolverhampton and so on. So I came back and they sent me to Hereford. They said, you're rusty, you can go down to Hereford. So the poor people of Hereford had to put up with me for a few
Relearning
weeks.
your craft.
Well,
But
I was de-rusting.
You're one of those actors, though, I have to say, at the risk of embarrassing you, who never seems to be out of work. You pop up every now and again in some smashing roles. I mean, I loved the butler father of Anthony Hopkins in Remains of the Day, which, I mean, was that for you a treasured role?
Oh, it was a treasured role. It was a treasured time. I mean, it was an absolutely superb book, a wonderful adaptation, and working with Anthony Hopkins, Emma, Hugh Grant, and being directed by James Ivory. It was just a magical time.
You're now in a rather long-running saga, it seems to me, for television, called Our Friends in the North.
That's right,
which
for
is
BBC Two, which is really thrilling.
Yeah.
It's written by Peter Flannery, and it is 9 hours, which will be shown next year, 9 episodes.
It's the kind of thing that audiences relish, that. 9
I think
hours
so,
worth.
because it's 1964 to 1995, seen through these working-class Newcastle-on-Tyne people, how it affects them right the way through, you know. The miners' strike, corruption,
all the
T. Dan
kind
Smith,
of things
all
that
the
to
things.
you are the stuff of life.
Exactly.
It's great to talk to you. Thanks for coming and meeting us. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Vaughan.
Thank you very much.
My next guest was an officer with the Grenadier Guards, and when he landed in southern Italy, it was with his pistol in one hand and his trumpet in the other. After the war, he formed his own band, and the trumpet playing has become legendary, but the pistol has long since disappeared, allegedly. Please welcome the godfather of British jazz, Humphrey Lyttleton. It's still there in the same hand as it was. Did you have many opportunities to play, though, when you were in the army?
Yes, because I just played, I found the opportunities, any opportunity. One of the things I used to do, and I'm always reminded of this by people who come up and say, I can remember you in the camps in North Africa and in the Salerno place, jazzing up the last post. And because I used to, being a trumpet player, you were a sort of a court jester. You were called upon to cheer people up. You know? So they didn't mind me. And of course, the last post in those days wasn't like it is now, a sad ceremony. It was just the last call of the day. It meant, you know, good night and shut up.
Bedtime, chaps.
Yeah.
How did you jazz it up?
Can't remember, but it was probably... I'll tell you, the thing was, I used to do that before the final last post, and then the bugler had to come on after me, and he'd be somewhere else in the camp, and he'd have heard that. And I used to try and put them off, you know, by being more and more outrageous.
You were educated at Eton. It must have been something of a shock to your parents when you became kind of a trumpet player. I mean, not that...
Well, it happened gradually. Yeah, you know, there were minor shocks
along the way. How old were you when you got your first trumpet?
Quite late, 15.
Oh, gosh.
And my mum took me to buy to Selma's in Charing Cross Road. It was during the Eton and Harrow match, and I was wearing a top hat, silver waistcoat, pale blue carnation, rolled umbrella with a pale blue tassel. And I went into... I didn't think about that because I was just keen on buying a trumpet. She trailed around after me saying, "Don't you think a clarinet would be nicer, softer?" And I already had a band at school, and I had one lesson on the trumpet. It came free with the instrument. You wouldn't believe the Manhattan Special, which is the one I got. It was one of the cheaper trumpets, but brand new, case, tutor, written by my old friend Nat Ganella, and a mute, and a free lesson, one free lesson. And I went along and I had this free lesson, and the guy had already practiced in the upstairs loo of my grandfather's house in Chelsea. And so I knew the scale. And so Sim Saville, this musician who was the resident teacher at this record shop, said to me, "Right, we'll teach you the scale." So I said, "Oh, do you mean this one?" And I played the scale. So that's when he said I'd go places. And it's true, although not maybe the places that
he wanted you to get.
And when I went back to school, I'd got this band with which I used to play mouth organ. And I was keen. I wasn't keen on just staying and doing, you know, the 6 months practicing and up and down the things. I wanted to play tunes straight away, and I discovered that you could play Basin Street Blues if you only knew 3 notes of the scale.
So is that the first thing
you played? I played with 3, yeah.
Oh,
It's too early in the morning to get no out of the No, it started here. Then you let the piano player play the twiddly bit. And so we played Basin Street Blues, and then we got a tune with 4 notes in.
And you gradually got better.
Built it up from there, yeah.
Got better and better. Yeah. You did quite a bit. I mean, as I say, you took it with you all the time as a Grenadier Guards officer. Were you officer material?
I don't think so. I wasn't regarded as being very regimental.
Well, how did you get on with all those guys shouting at you all the time, the RSMs?
Well, fortunately, I went in. I became an officer quite quickly. So what the officers did was to walk about on the parade ground with a stick, looking important and doing nothing. The main idea was that you were supposed to keep sergeants in control, because I've had a theory for a long time since those days that if you give people absolute authority and absolute power, if you say to a sergeant, for example, "Here are 10 men, knock them into shape any way you like, short of physical violence," very soon the sergeants went mad. I mean, they did things that people would, nowadays, people would come on, many white coats would come on.
Absolute power.
We had one who used to tell us what to do. Or rather, this was when I was an officer, but the people I was in charge with, he'd say, so-and-so, and then he'd say at the end of it all, very quietly, "Do you understand?" And then everything went mad. He then shouted, "Do you understand?" His face shook like that. His feet went off the ground. He shuffled them so quickly, he levitated. Hat flew off. And I was walking about with my stick, and I thought to myself, this man's a raving lunatic.
You got to some quite nice beanos, though. I gather you were at a dance at Buckingham Palace once.
I got into trouble over that, too. I was in trouble quite a lot of the time. I got into trouble because Geraldo's band was playing at the time, and these were all my idols, people I'd read in the magazines, you know, Rhythm magazine, and you'd see all about Leslie Jiver Hutchinson, wonderful trumpet player, father of Elaine Delmar, by the way, who's been on the show.
Yeah.
And so I stood by the band all night long. You were supposed to circulate and do your bit. It was royal command. So I stood by the band. The only thing that fascinated me about the royal family at that time, I never realized that on every public occasion they made up. Until there was a Viennese waltz, and George V, who was a very energetic dancer, went swirling, the sixth, went swirling around the room and perspiring madly, and rivulets of pan makeup came down over his collar. And so that's...
Oh dear.
But I got into trouble for looking at the band and not dancing with the ladies.
Now, I said where you were on VE Day. You were outside Buckingham Palace playing your trumpet. Where are you going to be on the VE Day celebrations this year?
Well, I've got a heavy day. I'm doing one thing for the BBC outside Buckingham Palace, less the trumpet. And then for ITN, can I say that?
You just have.
Oh, well.
Only once.
They're having a big party in Piccadilly Circus. And I'm taking the trumpet to that, so I'll have to remember all the old tunes.
Is Roll Out the Barrel you were playing before?
Yeah, because you know, it's now on public record, a thing from VE Day, a commentary, in which, and I found this out 30 years after the event, that the commentator had said, we'll now join the crowd and listen to the noises. And there's unmistakably me down there playing Roll Out the Barrel.
On your trumpet.
And they've put out these tapes, BBC Enterprises, you know, these sort of interview with me, and they've included this tape of me playing.
You're in there. It's a fascinating. It's a couple of tapes. Who is it for? It's quite a few tapes of you interspersed with jazz. What's it called? It's worth.
It's called Play As I Please, because the first book I wrote was called I Play As I Please, and they call it Play As I Please.
Well,
I call it Humph Drones On.
Well, you've droned on very nicely for us at the moment. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It always is. Ladies and gentlemen, Humphrey Lyttleton. Thank you. And I bet if he's outside Buckingham Palace and not playing his trumpet, the Queen Mother will want to know why. But someone else whose music became synonymous with the wars, a lady who's known as the Forces' sweetheart. In 1940, at the age of just 23, she was voted the nation's favourite female vocalist. She won the affection of servicemen and civilians alike. In a special interview for Pebble Mill, I talked to Dame Vera Lynn about her life during the war and about, what else, VE Day in 1945.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. The German war is therefore at an end. Today is Victory in Europe Day.
Again, don't know where, don't know when.
What are your memories of VE Day?
To be really honest, I don't have any. I can't really remember. My husband informed me that I was at Hackney Empire in Variety, but of course we'd had a little inkling before VE Day actually arrived by being invited to Windsor Castle for a party. And Tommy Trindle was there, and we thought, well, what's all this about, you know? So, of course, we said, well, actually, it's a little pre-Victory Day party, so we knew it was happening, coming.
Now, somebody once said that the war was invented by Vera Lynn's agent because the songs were so much a part of what went on then. But what made a Vera Lynn song?
Well, I was always very careful when I chose the songs that they suited the programme that I was doing, which of course turned out to be request songs, and the programme was going all around the world to wherever the boys were. And it really started because I was having so many requests to sing certain songs from Mum or Auntie and then from the boys. That I asked the BBC if they would give me my own programme of 15 minutes, and they came up with the idea of doing one for half an hour in the form of a letter, starting off with Dear Boys. That's why I still call them my boys.
Your boys on
They're all
sticks
ancient
now.
boys now, aren't we all? And I was very careful of the songs I chose.
Did you choose them, or did they choose you?
No. Well, in those days, the music business was completely different. You had to go around to the music publishers and pick your own songs. And you'd listen for hours, you know. You'd have an exploitationist who would demonstrate the songs to you. That's what he was called. Just a chap on a piano, really. And I would choose songs. They were all optimistic songs. It's a lovely day tomorrow, and you know, We'll Meet Again, White Cliffs of Dover. Every song was optimistic.
Do you remember the moment that you first heard We'll Meet Again?
Well, looking back once again in my scrapbook, I discovered that I sang it with Ambrose and his band before the war. So, of course, when I was looking for, I don't think anything happened to it. You know, it was a song I just sang on stage. And when I was looking for the songs for this particular program, I wanted a song to start with, a signature tune, Signing On, which was Wishing. I thought, well, everybody's wishing, you know. And We'll Meet Again, because that was the hope and the thought that no matter who and where they were, they hoped that they would meet again.
Did you come from a musical family?
Well, in a little way, yes. I had an uncle who was a semi-professional comic. He used to do a George Roby. I had an aunt who in her younger days, used to play in third-rate variety. But, and of course, we used to meet up in my aunt's and my grandmother used to live together house, and we'd have parties, and everybody sang and played the piano, and I suppose I was told that I sang songs at 2.5, you know, I had a repertoire.
Did you have any training?
No, never did. Never had any training. I went once to have music lessons, singing lessons, and the teacher said, "Oh, I can't teach that voice." She said, "I can't do anything with that. It's an unnatural voice." I said, "Well, it's the only one I've got." And at the time I had recording contracts. So she said, "Oh, you must have another voice." I said, "Well, I've got my bath voice." You know, so la, 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 you know, sing, "Ah, that's the voice," she said, "I'm going to train that." I said, "That would be any good to me." I'd turn up at the recording session singing like that. So that really was, she said, "I'm very sorry, I can't help you."
So how did you end up going out to entertain the troops?
Well, I'd been entertaining sort of in the theatres over here because they still carried on even though the raids were on, and doing the hospital trips and all the various other workers' playtime and camps and things. And I just felt that I wasn't doing enough and I wanted to do something more personal, shall I say. So I went to Drury Lane to Ensign. I said, you know, I'd like to go abroad somewhere and get to the boys and do my turn, you see. So I said, I'd like to go where they don't get a lot of entertainment. So he said, well, there's only one place. It says Burma. He said, nobody wants to go out there very often. So I said, okay, that's where I'll go. So that was my destination.
What did you feel like when you got there?
I was glad I was there. You know, I mean, it was very hot, very uncomfortable, not very pleasant, but I felt that, you know, I was at last doing something, and the boys obviously pleased to see me. You know, they couldn't believe it. What are you doing out here, you know, sort of thing. And they just loved, they wanted to hear about home, and they were just as happy for me to go around talking to them. I was there when the Chindits walked out. And so, of course, I was able to meet them when they come out, and just the officer in charge, he said, don't come today, he said, because they've got to be deliced. And we wouldn't like you to sort of, so come tomorrow, you see. So they were in this great compound, all these lads, you know, terrible state. And they just walked around chatting to them.
Did you see the sordid side of war?
Well, yes, you saw all the wounded chaps, you see. It was the casualty clearing stations that I was singing at. It might be in a tent, or it might be just out on the grass, you know, with the boys coming out of the jungle with their Tommy guns and things. They would just sit down, you know, we'd have a little concert, and when I'd finished, they'd just get up and walk into the trees, and they were gone.
Did it ever get you down?
Well, yeah, I was getting a bit depressed by the time my tour was coming to an end, you know, and I don't suppose I should talk about this, but Dickie Sharp, one of the reporters, we were sitting outside this little grass hut overlooking this river that went straight up into Kohima, And we were all sitting very depressed. He said, you can't get a drink here. He said, there's nothing. He said, there's not even a tonic water. You know, and I suddenly thought, I know what I've got in my knapsack. A bottle of Canadian Club. And they couldn't believe it when I brought this bottle out, you see. So there were the three of us, Gerald something or other, and Dickie Sharp and I, sitting there drinking neat Canadian Club. We were all so depressed and fed up. I staggered into my, unaccustomed as I was to drinking, staggered into my little grass hut, watched all the little sort of squirrel-type rats running all around the thing, tucked myself into my net and fell fast asleep.
You obviously value your association, your continuing association with the British Legion.
Well, yes. I mean, that's one of the charities I try to help. And last year we had a video out which gave them £25,000 from the sale of it, so I'm very happy about that. And we now have another one coming out, and I hope that's going to be just as successful for them.
So what's the general feeling in this one?
Well, this is A War to Remember, and it's based on a history, really, of a family, and it really goes right the way through the war, and it deals with the aspect of the, you know, the Blitz and the war camps and everything. So it's another thing that it will be very good for children, because it teaches them a lot, it tells them a lot, explains a lot, because they have little idea of how it could have been.
The war presumably has at least one happy memory for you, and it's that you met Harry during the war.
No, actually, I met him just before. Before war broke out, Ambrose, who I was singing with at the time, decided to take a big band out around the variety theatres, and we had only been working with a small group up to then, and so he needed some extra musicians to augment into a big band. And I was at Ambrose's office one day when some of these extra musicians was coming in to be chatted to, and Harry was one of them. And he was clarinet and saxophone, and he came in to join the band for a tour, which unfortunately had to break up when war started.
So do you remember that moment, Harry? I mean, was it love at first sight?
Well, I think I can say yes, because I saw her there and I thought, oh, that's just my style. And when we left there, I said, well, where are you going? And she said, I'm going to Denmark Street. So I said, come on, we'll get a cab. And she says, a taxi? I'm not going in a taxi with you. I said, OK, what are you going to do? She said, I'm going to get on the bus. So we got on the bus and we went upstairs on the bus, right? And I went to pay her fare. Don't want to know. Don't pay my fare. I don't want to get compromised. You know? I think it was about tuppence at that time. It was about half-p now or something.
Compromised for tuppence. Were you really frightened of him?
No, it wasn't that. But I mean, I'd only just met him, you know, and I don't allow strange men to pay my fare on the bus. So I got out my 2 pennies and I paid my own fare.
Yes. So when did you begin to hit it off?
Well, we were at rehearsals together because of being with the band and Vera singing with the band. And then when we went up to Glasgow, at the Glasgow Empire, we were working there and we had a tea break. And I took her next door into a little tea room. And I suppose that's how the romance really started from there, because they had some of these...
In a tea room at the Glasgow Empire?
Where else?
Right.
And it's true,
opposite the stage door.
Opposite the stage door. And we sat down, we had tea, and in the vase was 1 clove carnation. And I took this carnation out and I gave it to her. It wasn't mine. And I gave it to her, you see. And ever since then, on our wedding anniversary, I give her clove carnations. Well, I think that's how the whole thing started, didn't it, really?
Yes.
Where did you get married?
In the registry office, local registry office at Stratford. And coming out, there were 2 old dears outside the door with their shopping bags, you know. And one turned to the other and said, well, there goes her first one.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married now?
53 years. 53 years.
And is it true that you've never been apart?
No.
So
Never.
we've really been married for about
100
200 or
years.
300 years, I should think, because we're with each other every day.
Yes, all day.
Have you both got a special song? You've got so many songs that are special to people listening. We'll Meet Again, White Cliffs of Dover. Out of all that lot, which is special for you?
She doesn't really remember, but as soon as I say the title, she will remember and say, "Oh yes, stand by."
No, you can't.
Don't worry about me.
Oh yes, that
A
was...
song called "Don't Worry About Me." That was special to us.
But I always think that yours was the love song of the war years.
So, if you had to pick just one out of all those that you sang, would that be it?
Well, no, I suppose We'll Meet Again would have to be the one, because that's the one really that will go on, I think, forever and ever.
Somebody said yesterday on the radio, they were discussing various songs and different things, and they said that "We'll Meet Again" will be a folk song in the future.
And
which
do
I
you
thought was
still, 50-odd years on, get pleasure out of singing it?
Well, yes, people say to me, you don't sound as though you've been singing those songs for 50 years, because when I sing them, I'm singing them for the first time. I suppose it's because my mind goes back to the days when I first sang them. And so, of course, I'm bringing nostalgia to myself. And I can't sing them without feeling the same as I did when I sang them originally.
But I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
I'm sure we will. To finish the show, more music, this time playing what Vera Lynn describes as the patriotic song. It's the White Cliffs of Dover. Please welcome back the Piccadilly Dance Orchestra.
There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after tomorrow, when the world is free. The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see.
nostalgia. You can't beat it, can you? Thanks to all my guests. More V-Day reminiscences coming out throughout the week. I'll see you again on Wednesday in the company of Buddy Greco, Willard White and Molly Weir. Till then, bye-bye.
And a nostalgic end to Pebble Mill today and the end of this morning's BBC One. However, we're running up to Victory in Europe Day and Pebble Mill continues as to the rest of the morning to reflect that through the week. This morning on Good Morning, we were talking about dreams. How much